before you click out of here, just give me a moment to plead my case here, because a lot of you are probably already saying, well, of course she's human. We already know this. Raina's her daughter, and Kate's probably the granddaughter. Just hear me out before we start hitting assumptions like that. And I am calling them assumptions until we know for a fact. Because right now, a lot of people are taking theories as the actual canonicity of everything. And I want to explain right now how Myrrah is or isn't human. So let's start off with a little bit of history. So a lot of people claim with Myrrah that she is the descendant of the scientists who worked at the New Hope facility that went to Mount Kadar, and now she's in charge of the Locust, or was in charge of the former Locust, and now it's the Swarm, and she's obviously dead. Now, let's start breaking this down so I can tell you where things start to go off from the truth a bit. Now, when it comes to the scientists at New Hope, they were originally supposed to be looking into the emulsion and the effects it has on people, and they were a research facility. Cut forward a little bit, they figure out that emulsion ends up having, lambency effects on people. So they start testing, and bing, bang, boom, you got your sires. Again, I'm going over this really quickly. After you got your sires, you end up having a little bit more research, and then the government hears about it and says, that's a big no-no, what are you doing? Get out of here, you're going to Mount Kadar. All of this was kept hush-hush. And as far as we know, once they get to Mount Kadar, that's when we start having the first versions or proto-versions of the Locusts. So, from there, 100-year history gap of what the Locusts are doing. We have current day, or at least 17 years back from the end of AD, emergence. I forget what it is. It's not AD, it's AE, after emergence. So, 17 years before AE, 17 AE, you have E-Day, God, so many letters, and that's when we first get introduced to the Locust in our game, Gears of War. The point of all of that history is so that you understand that's what happened. That's what we know, and that's what we know is as a fact. A lot of people go from here on their own assumptions that once there, Myrrah is the descendant of these scientists, and that is why she is in charge of the Locust, because she is a descendant. There's a lot of holes in that, though, because we don't really know what happens within that 100-year gap of Locust history. We don't really know. We know some things, but not the full gist of it all. And the reason I bring this up is that the scientists were human. We know this. But then you have Myrrah, and I'm not too sure she is, because of the fact that if you look into it, she has the ability to talk to Locusts, or at least as far as we know, RAAM, on a mental scale. She can talk right into their heads about everything. And we can't really say that RAAM's special because we've already seen RAAM rose up through the ranks. He's a normal Locust. Yeah, he's built huge, but so was Skrock. I can guarantee her generals like Skrock, Scourge, RAAM, Karn, they probably all had like a mental connection with her somehow. I'm sure she was talking to them all. And then you also have at the end of 3, and this is what really queued me up into making this video and really brought up a lot of questions. And it really did originally too at the end of 3 with the fandom. A lot of people were wondering this. It was when Myrrah ended up dying, or at least moments before her death. So, what happened was with Adam's machine, it's killing Locusts. It's killing Lambent. That's what it's doing. If you have Lambency or Lambent cells in you, you are going to die. That is what the machine is made to do. So it is also going to kill the Locusts because they've been down there around this stuff so much. They have a small amount of Lambent cells in them, especially with how their upbringing is from Mount Kadar forward. They have a small bit of Lambency, so they will die. Like we see at the end of 3 and going into 4, those cells pretty much died and they ended up crystallizing pretty much. Now, with Myrrah, we see it's already killing Locusts. It's already killed Adam, who infected himself. And we see that she's walking up to Adam. Not Adam. I guess technically him too if you count his ashes. But she's walking up to Marcus. And she's just walking up, just hubris, blah, blah, screw you, I'm Myrrah. And the waves are going off. She's not being affected. It's not doing anything to her. She's still walking forward, no problem. So that's when people thought, okay, she is human. There's no arguing. She survived the waves. Then Marcus kills her with Dom's knife, and she's bleeding red blood. And everyone's like, yeah, she's definitely human. She doesn't have any weird blood. Until he takes the knife out. And he holds it up, and you can see at the end, it's a bright yellow, just like emulsion, lambency, the color we're used to seeing for them. And going down, it becomes orangish, then red. So, yellow and red make orange if you don't know your color schemes that well. So, at the very end is a yellowish hue on the knife from whatever it is he stabbed into. And Marcus even looks at it. It's not like he just sits there like, oh yeah, she's dead. No, he looks down and acknowledges, this is on my knife. There's something up here. So that's what leads me to say, I don't think Myrrah is completely human. And a lot of people will say, well, how do you explain Raina then? And Kate, they're having these mental thoughts and they must be human. Well, we don't fully know because no one ever came out and said, yes, you are 100% human, no question. I don't think story-wise we've ever gotten that. I mean, I'm very certain they're human, but no one ever 100% in story said, yes, you are human. At least I don't think so to Myrrah. I think it's always been left like, oh, she must be human because look at her, she's bleeding, she's not getting affected by the waves. But that doesn't explain the mental connection. That doesn't explain why it is that she has this like bright yellowish like liquid inside her body that's not emulsion apparently. So we don't really know the situation for her. And also, if you want to make the argument about the New Hope people where it's like, oh, she must have, had a kid with them and that's how Raina came to be. Well, by what the wiki says, and I'm not really trusting it because of this, is that she's a descendant from the scientist and she rules the Locusts. Well, if she had another kid with another scientist and that's how Raina came along, well, then that means that there was another scientist from the New Hope Project running around this whole time, and they knew about everything that was going on. They knew about the Locusts. They knew about just everything. They knew about the New Hope stuff. They probably would be the person who know about the lineage for Myrrah leading into, Raina and then Kate. So that's why I'm sitting here like, well, then who did she end up having who's the father of Raina then? Because if it's a scientist, we're led to believe she's the last descendant of them all because we never see another one. And you think the Locusts would think very highly of that person, but they're not around. And a lot of people have thrown around, well, maybe it must be Adam. And there's a video by Barricade. I'll link it in the description. If you go and watch it, he explains how that's probably just a no, how it just really doesn't make sense. So I'll link that in, give Barricade some free love, all that good stuff. When you look into it, there are a lot of holes on if Myrrah is human because there's a lot of things that don't make sense. Again, she can mentally talk to creatures of the Locusts. I want to assume more than just the generals. And now Kate's having these, I don't want to say she's mentally speaking to them, but when she dreams, she's definitely involved with the hive, with the swarm for some reason. And since the swarm are pretty much the descendants of the Locust, or at least the new evolution, if you want to say, you have to sit there and decide, well, does that mean that it's a lineage thing? Because if that's the case then, and Myrrah is the grandmother, then that means that somewhere along the line, that ability got passed down. And normal humans can't do that. So what does that mean for Myrrah? How did she get that ability? Why is there yellowish goo inside of her that we can't really explain and it's never brought up? And when they get to 5, they're going to go to New Hope. You're not going to get information on Myrrah unless she's been alive for more than 100 years. Because, again, 25 years after, 17 years after E-Day, that makes over 40-ish years. So that means that 40-ish plus the 100 and something years since New Hope was even an idea. So that means that Myrrah, if she was one of the original scientists, she must have been alive for over 100 years to get to E-Day because, they had to get everything set up. She must have been born before the New Hope Project began. So unless she figured out how to slow her aging and she's one of the originals, I don't know how she would have that ability unless they experimented on her too. There was a theory that she was experimented on. But again, she's been alive for a while, and as far as we know, there are no other scientists that came from New Hope that are in the Hollows. We have no clue of any of them. Could there be? Maybe, but you think that these people will be brought up since they were the ones who created them, or at least the sires, and it led into this. But that's the issue when it comes to Myrrah and Raina and Kate, I guess, too. We don't really know where they fall when it comes to are they human or not. My guess is yes, they must be somewhat human because obviously Raina had Kate. We know this for a fact. I mean, I think it's been stated unless Raina's hiding something, but it wouldn't make sense since Kate can see the visions too, and we don't know what Raina's been hiding. For all we know, Raina could have known half of this stuff, but she never said anything. So Are they human? There's a good chance they probably are. But I remember reading a book when I was a kid. It was called Maximum Ride. James Patterson wrote it. He made a series of it. It was decent. It got a little weird towards book 4 when you learn their main purpose is to stop global warming. Spoiler for you, it's not that great of a twist. But anyway, it's brought up with these kids. It's kind of like a joke in seriousness when they say like we're 98% human about that. Because of the fact that it's brought up, well, we mostly are human, but we do have some avian DNA in us. Because we have wings, our bones are somewhat hollow, and we have an appetite we constantly have to feed, like a bird kind of. So they said we're mostly 98% human with like 2% bird thrown in there. And that's what I kind of want to say is the same thing with Raina, Myrrah, and Kate. They're 98% human. Aside from mentally speaking to the Locusts, having weird blood, I guess, because that's what Myrrah had. If they're descendants, I'd like to guess maybe that's the same. That's the best I can say. So like they're pseudo-human, or they're 2/3 human, a third something else, or 98%, like I said. It could be anything like that. So that's what I'm going to guess with when it comes to Myrrah. I want to say she is human, definitely by what we've seen and what we've experienced, but there's definitely a lot more going on with her and also her lineage biologically that we still don't really know that much about. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you for sticking through with this one. I just had this thought that came up. This was the one that won the tiebreaker for this week's poll. So, if you want more information on Myrrah, I'd say go to your local library, but you need to write down what books you need to find. You need to go find them. I mean, it's easier just to use the internet. I mean, order your books off Amazon, have them come to your place. It's a lot easier that way. Get more information. The Gears series is really good, especially the books. That'll do it for me. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'll have a poll up for the next one coming up. You guys have a great one. See you later.